Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists, the podcast about all the nerdy things we enjoy. Who's we? Well, I'm Will. That's Blake. And today we're here to talk about some Critical Role for all our critters out there. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. I'm a little hungry, a little tired. Haven't had any coffee yet, but I'm good because we're talking Critical Role.
Oh, you haven't had your coffee yet?
Yeah, I haven't had my coffee yet. I had a little bit of, didn't sleep so good. Had a little bit of dizziness today and was like, maybe I'll just kind of get a little water. So
I hear that.
Be a little hydro homie today.
Yeah. I didn't sleep very well either last night. I wonder if it's
something in the
going
water,
around.
Yeah.
Although I do like this. I don't know if it's happening over in your neck of the woods, but we got a little storm happening.
Yeah, we got a storm brewing.
That's a podcast vibe that I'm about.
Yeah, I think for me it's like the new baby that screams every hour.
That checks out.
What keeps me awake.
That makes sense.
So yeah. But other than that.
But yeah, I'm excited to dive in today. We're talking a little Critical Role. I don't think we have any really announcements or anything other than EXU Calamity
Season 2.
yeah Witcher Season 2 coming down the pipeline very soon.
We need to do Doctor Strange. So there's that, and then
I do want to talk about that.
We need to finish EXU also.
Yeah, we need to finish up Kymel, and then we plan on doing Calamity too. So I mean, since there's not going to be Critical Role proper, I imagine that's what we'll do for the next coming weeks, but we'll see.
Yeah. And when they first announced Calamity, we made a comment about, or I said it has a very Halo Reach vibe to it, which if you guys ever played Halo Reach, spoilers, this is your alert for the game 10 years ago. Everyone dies. And so I just saw a tweet though that was like reminding people like this Thursday. And it was like, stay tuned for, it was like either Matt or maybe it was just in general Exandria's, but they said the heartbreaking story of what happened so many years ago, which I was like, okay, the Reach vibe it's getting stronger now. I think we're about to watch an adventure of some doomed people.
I agree. That's at least my assumption. It'd be interesting if that somehow didn't happen. But yeah,
one person will survive to tell the story though.
Okay, I like that.
Like the one shot that Ashley Johnson did, Talison's character.
Oh,
he made it out.
The sci-fi ship one. Yeah.
Which, by the way, everyone, amazing one shot. You got to check that out.
We might have just spoiled it, but but it was good.
And there it is. Now you know. Yep, that was it.
So yeah, that was good.
Yeah. All right. Well, are we ready to talk about this thing?
I think so. So, before we dive into the discussion, we always like to recap each episode. So if you're new to us, we take that recap, cut it out of our podcast, and rehost it separately for your refreshing convenience. So if you happen to find yourself on that video, check down in the description box if you're interested in seeing the full podcast where we discuss and theory craft and everything. But yeah, without further ado, we can launch into this if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so episode 24, we don't have a title yet, but episode 24 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. So remember where we ended the last episode, which is Laudna and Imogen on the deck of the ship, and Laudna destroying Imogen's pet rock. Very tough scene to watch. Very good scene, though. And basically, this episode opens up with the next morning, or an early morning. And Orem is basically, he's one of the early risers of the group. He gets out on the deck of this airship, and he's kind of looking over the landscape, and he sees this small caravan kind of making its way, what seems to be towards Bassaras. And then he sees this rumble of earth a ways away from them. The best way I can describe it is like the movie Tremors. like they see
Oh.
the ground sort of like splitting and cracking in like a moving way towards this caravan. And Orem is basically like, there's something down there and it's heading towards this small caravan of presumably defenseless, helpless people. So he gets Xandus. He wakes basically everyone up and is like, "What? Like, what is that? What's going on? Everyone, let's get together. Like, we might have some people we need to be helping." And Xandus is like, "Oh, that's a Dustra. They're rare to see them kind of out and about. This isn't a common thing to see." But basically says our plan is not going to be to fight it because they're kind of crazy, but to at least steer it away. And so the ship moves down towards the surface, and everybody basically jumps in to help out this caravan. So Chetney and Fern jump on the harpoon guns and fire their harpoons into the Dustra. And they can see it's about 50 to 80 feet long. And it is, the best way to describe it is it's like this, I think Matt describes it as like a cephalopod with like spines and like spikes. And he actually gives a longer description of what it looks like under the earth, which we'll come back to in a second. But essentially they fire these chains into it. Fern actually aims for its tail, so to speak. And Matt's like, pretty much like, you're not going to make this shot. But then she rolls a 20 and beats his 18 DC check and is like, yeah, you really just kind of were firing blindly and somehow you hit it. So congrats. But basically they at least hit it with the harpoons. Imogen uses her command spell again and casts and says stop to it, and it stops sort of like lurching in the dirt and just sort of holds its position for a moment. She casts fly, she goes down, basically tries to detect thoughts, and basically, I don't know if she actually deliberately detected thoughts, but she realizes there's like an intelligence to this creature, that it at least understood her command stop, and that there's this sort of agony and this pain on the creature, and this anger, this desperation. So she goes back to the ship and basically says like, "Hey, I don't think we should like hurt it. There's something else happening here."
Yeah.
So F.C.G. then actually does cast Speak with Animals and is like, "Hey, buddy, you okay?" And this creature in like this low rumbling voice basically says that its children have been taken and it wants its children back, and seems to imply that this caravan has taken its children. Meanwhile, Chetney is gearing up his harpoon to make another shot at it. And F.C.G. is like, wait, let me just convince it to leave, and is like, we can promise you the caravan doesn't have your spawn. Just leave and don't hurt anyone else. So he has to roll a persuasion check, and he rolls a natural 1. So Xandus is like, fire, and so Chetney fires into it again, and now it has 3 chains into it, and basically all negotiations are over. The ship ends up lifting the creature out of the dirt, and it ends up being this squid-like creature with all these tentacles, and at the ends of the tentacles Matt describes them as hands, like little fingers that are like are grabbing onto the dirt to try to like stay in the ground. No. As well as a third eye like down on the chest of the creature. But they basically carry it a ways away and basically drop it off, and it makes its way away. And then all of a sudden the party's like, wait a second, what if this caravan actually did steal their children? Like maybe we just did the wrong thing. So they decide, let's get some rest, and then let's go down and we'll talk to the caravan and kind of see what's going on. Ashton, by the way, in this whole process has been impaled by a spike on the ship. So they have to pull that out of him. He ends up being okay, though. And the party basically goes down to the caravan and find out that these are like really basically destitute traders. They don't have much. They're grateful for being saved, but they basically give, I think, Laudna like, hey, we did a tip jar and someone donated a wet blanket and like a few copper pieces. And they're like, oh, thank you. So Laudna takes the blanket. They give the copper to F.C.G. And then the party essentially continues on to Bosros. And Bosros itself is this junky, it's like junket. It's this junky
Junkie,
smorgasbord. I did smorgasbord of metal and scrap and tents, and it's all sitting on against this on this plateau against this large red stone wall. The airship lands in, and Xanus is basically like, "All right, get off, get off, get off! Like, I don't want to be here any longer than I have to." So basically, kicks them off. They get off. These guys ride out that Ashton identifies as the Skids, and Matt basically says, if you've seen Mad Max, it's basically like what these people look like. So they roll out, and basically, I think he said they had tattoos on their elbows. I don't remember what the tattoos were, though. Do you remember?
Not off the top of my head. I'll see if I can find it.
So they have tattoos that kind of identify them that are on their elbows. And one guy's kind of like, what the heck are you guys doing? That's quite the entrance. And even says that like this person in particular hasn't even seen an airship in 15 years. Kind of implies like you guys must be important. And Ashton immediately is kind of speaking for the group, kind of like, sort of trying to divert any kind of attention, like, oh, that's my first time on it. And they have this small conversation where Ashton identifies himself as Ashton Greymore. And the guy says, Greymore from the house? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, huh, okay. But basically says, like, kind of welcomes him into the city and says, if you make a mess, clean it up. Like, don't do anything dumb. And then they basically go on their way. Not before Ashton, though, asks if Death Wish is still a thing. And the guy's like, all the time, baby. He basically is like, yeah, it's common. But again, we don't get any insight as to what this could be.
Right.
Party makes their way in. And I forgot to mention there was like this green light that sets on them, kind of like a watchtower that, sets on anyone who enters the city. And he called it something, but I don't remember what exactly it was. But all that to say, the party makes their
glow.
The tonic glow. Yeah, thank you. The party makes their way into the town, and they decide, yeah, let's get some food, get some rest. And Matt also explains that in this town, it's not common to find like a sleeping quarter. They're not like taverns where like you go to sleep and there's also like a bar. Here, in Bassaras, I think he calls it a caravanserai, and says basically, imagine if there was a place to sleep that also had a shopping mall.
Yeah.
And that's really like the culture of like the sleeping places here. So Ashton recommends they go to the Rahadin, which is kind of like a middle level type place. And the party basically gets a room, they get some food, and they go to sleep for the night. At night, each person's taking turns taking watch. They hear different people outside. What's interesting is during F.C.G's watch, he hears some birds shuffling outside the window, and oddly enough, wakes up Chetney in sort of a panic, saying that, and has Chetney look out the window and basically says, like, do you see a hawk out there? And he's like, yeah, I see a hawk. He's like, is it mangy? He's like, I don't know, it looks like a hawk. And F.C.G basically reveals that it was weird that there is this hawk that has tormented him and followed him for at length, and is always basically tracking him and basically trying to poop on him too. So they have quite the interaction there. They also, at some point, they look at the tracker that Estros had given them, and it has this bright blue glow, and it seems to point to the south. And it's presumed that Armand Tresci is somewhere near. And Ashton even says, yeah, I think he's in like the southern, maybe it was the southern dregs. The southern dregs. Ashton basically says, yeah, he's probably in the southern dregs. There's not a lot down there that's worth seeing. There is the Taste of Taldore, which is like a really trashy, eclectic buffet of all cultures and whatever. They're like, all right, we'll head there in the morning, like when we're all rested. So, all that to say, they all set out in the morning to go that way. And as they're passing an alleyway, they hear some ruffians that are basically ordering a woman to drop her sword and leave. And they're like, that's someone who seems like they need help. So they rush in and we go to break. So, you want to take it from there?
Yeah. So this Elvish stranger that's being attacked, they actually have a guest come in, and it is Erika Ishii. So they join the table, and basically the bake picks up, and initiative is rolled, and combat begins. So we've got Bell's Hells, this elven stranger at this point, played by Erika, and basically a bunch of thugs. And as always, don't want to get slogged down in the exact play-by-play of everything that happened. So a few of the highlights that happen here are, first of all, these thugs are seemingly mugging this elf, and they're making attacks, and the elf suddenly thunderclaps, I want to say. I don't know if that's the exact spell, but teleports up to a nearby roof. But they're not running away. They're just kind of getting out of harm's way and still here to help. Imogen, during the battle, twin spells a mind whip and decides to roll on the wild magic table with her little Feywild stone that she has. Yeah. And because of this, all of her hair falls out.
Yeah.
So Chetney immediately tosses her his hat. She puts that on.
She's a total cue ball. That's what
Matt describes. She's very disturbed by it, I think, as well.
That's funny.
So, combat's continuing. Another kind of big moment was there's a spellcaster amongst these thugs, and at one point they cast what we come to find out is a spell called Phantasmal Killer, and basically they summon out of the sky this dark shadow form of Ashton, like if you played Ocarina of Time, Shadow Link, it was like Shadow Ashton, plummets down from the sky, has their own hammer, and basically just starts coming for the real Ashton. And even though Ashton, the real one, is raging, he still is frightened, which, this is really terrifying to Ashton. And I think Matt described it as you're not familiar with these gifts, and maybe, the bill's coming due type of thing. So this really is unsettling. Combat continues. One of I think it's the leader, at one point tries to take Ashton's hammer from him, but fails. And in response to this, Taliesin hyper rages, which we don't really get any information on what exactly that means, but definitely is kind of just a new bag of tricks that he's revealing to us here. And he does that and takes a few strikes on the leader. And at this point in the combat, the thugs are realizing that they're in over their heads, and they basically start making moves to retreat. But as that happens, this dark Ashton grabs real Ashton's head and does a ton of psychic damage.
It was 30 something. It was crazy.
And so Ashton at this point is just looking real rough. Like I said, is terrified mechanically, I believe. So it's just not in a good place. So at this point, Imogen lines up a lightning bolt and kind of strikes 3 of the thugs that are making their way to retreat, and completely just obliterates 2 of them, getting a "how do you want to do this" on them. And she describes the lightning bolt literally impaling through them, and she sees the 3rd one through the holes in the other 2. And I think she uses her bonus action to telepathically communicate to that 3rd one that's you're not going to get away, I'll find you. So Imogen going super hardcore. But combat is winding down. But one other cool thing that happens is Orem takes a moment on his turn, and one of a different thug, not one of the ones that Imogen just obliterated, but one that he had knocked unconscious earlier, he actually druid crafts and stabilizes their wound before then getting up, running over to that 3rd one that did get away, and knocking that one unconscious as well. So the party has fully dealt with all of these thugs now, and this elven stranger jumps down from the roof, but Erika rolls really poorly on the athletics check and totally busts ass on the way down.
I think she's I'm usually a really talented warrior, and then that's what
I'm very capable. But then introduces themselves as Dusk, and they're not from around here, and things are really fuzzy in their memory. The last thing they do remember is that they were in the Feywild, and it was this beautiful glen with a river, and I believe it was dusk, which is why that's where they got their name from. And everything else is just fuzzy. So the party goes around introducing themselves. Everyone except Fern, who has actually made her way inside a nearby tent, just kind of seeing what's going on in there. And inside, there's this unique, strong smell, and an old woman that Matt described as like having a single tooth and like cataract eyes, and she's holding this bowl. And Fern asks, like, "Is this your home?" And the woman says, "No, just having lunch in here." And Fern asks, "Well, what are you eating?" And she's like, "Well, I already ate. I'm having my after lunch." And as she says that, she kind of presents the bowl forward, and there's like these crystallized nuggets in there, and it's like smoking, kind of like an incense. And Fern basically takes a big whiff, and Matt has her roll a wisdom saving throw, which she rolls a 21, I think. And he describes like the shadows in the room kind of start dancing a bit, and the old woman's face de-ages, and she's basically just kind of feeling a little tripped out. But because of her experience in the Feywild and with way crazier stuff, it doesn't really affect her. She can kind of shake out of it. And she's like, "Okay, well, I just came to get my sword." And she picks up a sword that is not hers, and it's like, "Great." And she's like, "What else did I leave in here?" And she ultimately also takes a box of candles, some blue pants, and one other thing, a bag of rice.
I forgot to mention her giving Xandus a hug too earlier.
Oh yeah,
being like, "Yeah, you're a great guy," and then stealing from him too.
she can't help herself.
No.
So she takes those things, and she does ask what the old woman's name is, but the old woman, who's clearly like high on whatever it is that this smoking bowl is producing, and she's like, "I think it starts with a D, but like I don't remember." And
smells like a bowl in here.
And she's just like, just passing my time here in hell. And Fern's like, "Okay, well, see you later," and basically exits the tent. And
that part too, she's like, "Oh," and she's like, because of the Hellcatch Valley, and she's like,
yeah,
"Oh, right, that's not as creepy then."
So she makes her way out, and now Fern too is introduced to Dusk, and Dusk, they basically make the Feywild connection, since that's the one thing Dusk remembers. And Fern, they like super connect on this, and Fern even wonders if this Glen that Dusk is describing may very well be one that she is also familiar with, near where she and her grandmother lived. They're not certain that is the case, but they basically just kind of have a moment over it, and both say that they hope they can return there at some point. So now that everyone's met, not two groups, Bells, Hells, and Dusk do decide to kind of roll together for now. And they're actually going to head to the Taste of Taldore just to get some food and actually kind of rest. Especially Ashton is like, "Yeah, like I need a minute." So they're like, "All right, well, let's head there." And that's actually where the episode ends.
Great job.
Yeah. I think that was everything.
So,
yeah.
Well, hey, if you're checking out our recap, click the link below, get the full episode, our thoughts and reactions to it. And if you're on our longer video, hey, thanks for checking out the whole video.
Yes.
So, all right, well, what'd you think?
Man, pretty mediocre, honestly. No, of course, I loved it. I really enjoyed the whole Operation Dumbo drop at the beginning with the Dustra, and so always a great time to have like a guest come on the show. I don't know if it's fair to call Robbie a guest. He almost feels like a core member of the family at this point, but
sure,
I guess technically he was. So this is our second guest, but it really feels like the first guest.
Yeah, it does. I feel a little protective though, because I'm like, that's Robbie's seat. How dare you
get out?
How dare you stand where he stood?
But it's great to have a guest back, especially I think we maybe have talked about this on and off at different points, but in C2 toward the end, that's when the pandemic broke out. And so for the whole like final stretch, and even some before that, there were no guests because, they had to kind of redo things and be, of course, safe about everything. So obviously they weren't bringing in new people. So anyway, all that to say, was very excited to see a guest. I love Erica Ishii. She's I think this is her first time proper on like the main Critical Role campaign, but she's been involved with various one shots and other D&D adjacent IPs on the internet. So it's cool to finally see in the campaign proper getting a chance to shine, if you will.
Yeah, I was wondering if she had been on an episode before. I like her. She seems fun.
Yeah, for sure. So of course, I enjoyed it. What about you?
Well, I liked it a lot. Yeah, I mean, we have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to talking about this show, so clearly we really deeply enjoy it. But yeah, I really liked the episode. I was disappointed in the sense of where we left things, like waiting 4 weeks. Like, there's not a lot to like stew on and talk about and like really break down. Like, we got, Matt does such a great job on the culture side of like world building and like building a city that has like Dressar feels like home. Like, we feel like we really know it. We understand it a little bit. Like, we know like the different spires and like kind of the vibe of the place. Mm-hmm. But like, go back to episode 1, it was like, you're kind of discovering how people interact. And I got that same vibe here with Bosseros of the skids, kind of like this makeshift amalgamation of like trash and tents. Yeah. And then the woman having her after lunch. Yeah, I really appreciate all the thought Matt puts into like building the character of a city. But yeah, so my only disappointment is I'm excited for Calamity, but we got 5 weeks of waiting, I guess, and just not much to talk about, unfortunately. So,
yeah, true. I guess it's the trade-off is like if it ends on a massive cliffhanger, that's kind of like, we got to wait so long. So, I can kind of see the trade-off, and there are at least definitely some nuggets I'm excited to talk about from this episode, even though there's no like hanging massive, cliffhanger type moment.
Right. But I really liked it though. I thought it was a good episode. And, I also, like you coined it, Dumbo Drop was great. Boss Ross seems great. The Crow, the Hawk with F.C.G was interesting, especially given, was it Ness? I don't know who it was, who had the whole theory on birds. For F.C.G, so I couldn't stop thinking about that whole theory that whole time. But so anyway,
Ness, bravo, you were clearly onto something there. And I mean, I guess let's just start there.
Let's start there and help me piece together, because some of it's vague in my mind. But for people who need more context, basically, we had a guy in our comment section, Ness, who has all sorts of great comments on the channel, but essentially had a Reddit post that was a very detailed theory around F.C.G's. Well, specifically, what was the big takeaways?
It was just like Ness cataloged all the different times that Sam has like either just physically with like a physical response, or like or F.C.G has verbally like expressed some sort of disgust or fear, or just made some sort of comment when birds are brought up. And so like the culmination of the theory was that like the F.C.G has some sort of thing with birds. And so clearly we're now, because of this episode, he most certainly does. There's a very specific bird that has like haunted him. So way to go on picking up all those context clues that Sam has been weaving in. But yeah, just really fascinating because Sam is he's not always like, in campaign 1 he was Scanlan, who was this kind of like very like humor, like lead with jokes and stuff, and Sam kind of weaves that into all of his characters, but he's very actually intentional behind all of that. So like Ness noticed that these like one-off comments about like hating birds in the past actually was leading to something. What I'm getting at with this long drawn out monologue is I'm very interested to see what, like, this is clearly something and what possibly like could have shaken him to his core so much just from a bird following him, like why is that such like a cornerstone of his character? And I think it's definitely something, and probably something massive, and not just Sam like playing a joke of being scared of birds. So I'm very interested to see like what's actually behind that.
I think that the beast that eviscerated his friends, I mean, I think there was some comment of it like flying away or something. So presumably is bird-like, hawk-like. Who knows?
I was wondering this, and so do you think it's the same entity? Because I feel like that's an
No.
easy connection to make, but if so, why did he not say that? Like why didn't he say like, he just said like, oh, we call it shithead because it pooped on me a lot, and
Yeah.
not that it killed my family. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's like one of those things where like, you have like, this is such a bad analogy, but like you have a really bad experience with mustard when you're like 5 years old. And like by the time you're 15, you kind of forget about the experience. But anytime like mustard or mustard-esque sauces are used, you just feel like this kind of, I don't know about that, and you don't even really remember quite why. You're just kind of like, I just don't like mustard.
do you want to say something about mustard right now?
No,
This is a safe space.
I think ketchup is just the go-to. I mean, why do we need to change the? I will say though, here's the deal: I don't like mustard. Okay, let's just get it out there.
Okay,
But
it's a shame.
The seedy mustard they use for like what's it called? Like the wooden board with like all of like the different like meats,
Like a
and
charcuterie
cheeses.
board.
Yeah, so like the seedy mustard, so good.
So you like real mustards and not like the sugarized.
Yeah, I don't like the deep yellow mustard at all whatsoever.
Fair. I mean, but but that's fair.
I love like the scooping or like spreading mustard. Again, I call it seedy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a man of culture.
Like a Dijon or a Grey Poupon.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I was thinking about, I was like, okay, that's the brand, right? So, well, actually, those are still like spready. Like, I like the really, like, you can see all the individual seeds. Like, it's like clumpy almost.
Yeah. I know you're talking about.
So, anyway, what are we talking about?
Where did we start? How did we get here?
Okay, point being, so like for him, we know that he can't fully remember what happened to his friends. We know that there's very like vague, shadowy images in his memories. And if he tries to go deeper, we haven't had this happen recently, but seems to sort of like short circuit or like programming goes haywire, what have you. So the point I was making was, for us, maybe it's a bit too on the nose, but for him, maybe it makes more sense because it's like there was something it's intangible in my mind. I know it's something with wings. And so I have this general apprehension around birds. I don't know.
No, okay. Yeah, I could see that. And that, maybe his hatred and fear of this bird he was describing to Chetney, like he feels that way because the thing that attacked his family was a bird and not that they are the same entity necessarily.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's like a nefarious bird that's like, I'm here to finish the job, but I don't know.
So since you said that, I'm wasting everyone's time saying this, but I'm still going to say it because I think it was immediately disproved like moments after I had the thought. But when he originally said that, because he made it seem like it like followed him in a way, like it was a recurring thing. And so my initial thought was that like, okay, if F.C.G is this like advanced robot from a long ago, maybe there are other advanced technologies, maybe even something like a flying robot that was like tracking him because maybe they want to like recover these important artifacts. But then he described it as like mangy and stuff, and I was like, well, if it was a robot, it probably wouldn't be.
But to give you credit though, F.C.G is a flat earther in in the Critical Role world. Is that just believes it's a flat earth. And so what is the other like mainstream's not the right word, but just like well-known sort of silly theory? Birds aren't real, that they are governmental, whatever. And so I don't know, you say it, I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe he's trying to pull in all these things. So.
That would be hilarious. So I mean, the mangy comment made me get away from it, but I think that would be cool if like he and maybe Dancer and the other ones were being, if not hunted, like trying to be like taken back, maybe because they are this valuable technology. So maybe someone is using a drone to find them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I loved, on a more meta level, I love Travis and Sam interactions. So the whole Chetney F.C.G thing just put a huge smile on my face. And it was just it was funny that like they actually did get the mechanical deeper connection or whatever. I forget what it's called, but like a close friend or
Yeah.
so that was fun. But Grog and Scanlan was one of my favorite dynamics in campaign 1. So I just love seeing those two interact,
Yeah.
and hopefully get more there.
So the close friends is that like a D&D thing? Like what was that
No,
comic? They had like shared something, and then they turned to Matt and they were like, was that like enough for us to now be
right.
like
I
close
think
friends?
so. He has that with Imogen because they did
Right.
their mind meld. Does he have it
Right.
with Laudna too? I don't know.
I don't know. I know he does with Imogen though.
But I think it's just part of the homebrew class that he and Matt made together.
Yeah.
So
Okay, yeah.
if it is like a pre-established D&D thing, y'all let us know. But I think it's just a glimmer or glance of what his class can do. So which I think it means they get like a higher die roll for something as opposed like it's a D8 instead of a D6 or something.
I think it's like the sharing of the pain or whatever, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool.
But yeah,
that was good.
It was cool to get more there. I'm very curious to see, if and how that relates to the attack on his family, which I mean, I like what you said that it's probably just kind of some like a trauma connection thing. So I buy that. But yeah, I hope we get more. I want to keep digging in that hole. So hopefully Travis as Chetney will bring that up again.
We didn't hear about the bird being mentioned in Dressar. So is it implied that he's been like being followed this whole time and he's just now F.C.G. just now mentioning it, or this was a mangy bird that followed them in Bosseros, because this is where around the area they're originally from, and then when they left, now they're back and like, oh great, the bird's back.
Yeah, well, I don't think that the one he saw was the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think they were just like, he was like, hey, like, is that it? And I think he just has a distaste for all birds, but I don't think the one that they like saw that night was the exact one, because Chetney was like, you tell me and I'll kill it if I see it. So but yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there definitely, like Ness cataloged were some bird interactions at least, or at least mentions in Dressar. So who knows when and where like this original thing happened. I'm curious if it happened. Well, I guess it had to have happened post Dancer. I was like, I wonder if these are memories from the before of F.C.G, whenever that was. But I guess they wouldn't be, because he wouldn't remember that.
We probably need a link Ness's post just for people who are curious and want to read about it, because it's pretty interesting how much things have lined up. So
yeah, for sure. And final thing on this, not to drag it out too long, but Ashton knows about this fear of his, right? I feel like do you remember? I feel like Taliesin has maybe like acknowledged it before.
That I'm not sure. That I don't know. But speaking of Ashton, though, what's going on with Ashton?
Yeah, I mean, seemingly this is the arc, or not the arc necessarily, but we're going to get more on him here, being back in his, not hometown, but his previous stomping grounds. The name Greymore is recognized here, so that made me wonder if it's more of like an actual family name, or maybe more of like a like Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. Snow was just like what bastards were called, So I wonder if Greymore is more of like a class name or something, or like a gang name even.
Where my mind goes, because they said like, oh, from the house, I kind of envisioned like, this is like piecing together with like the cult theory that we had a few episodes ago. So let me just walk it all through. So Ashton is part of this Ishari cult, or his whole family is. Everyone dies except for maybe him or a couple other people, but basically family's gone, town's gone, all this kind of stuff. And he moves over to Bosseros as like an orphan boy, and moves into like an orphanage, basically, who's owned by a person named Greymore, and it's known as like the Greymore House. and basically grows up in Bassaros as an orphan in like, the assumed family name, but in the orphanage. And that's how people know about it, because it's like the presumably also a place like Bassaros. It sounds like it wouldn't be uncommon for there to be people without families or without their parents or what have you. And so that's where my mind goes to, is like, oh, from the house. And I kind of think like, yeah, the orphanage house, like the place that a bunch of kids like him grew up in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's kind of just where I assume a lot there, but that's kind of just where my mind goes.
No, I'm on the same page. Just maybe not literally like an orphanage proper, but essentially like a found family or misfits or whatever, or maybe literally an orphanage. But yeah, I'm on the same page with you there. That I think it's less like his actual family's name and more of like a group of whatever.
Right.
So yeah, super interested to find out about that. I want to know what Death Wish is. His comment was like it's like the one redeeming thing or like the one fun thing here, right? Or something to that effect.
He says something like, if it's like the one thing we get out of this trip, then it was like worth it, or wouldn't be all bad or something. But it didn't make sense what he was referring to.
Yeah. So my initial thought was like, is it like a band or like a like fun event that is hosted or something?
I wonder if it was like a drink or something. Like, is Death Wish still a thing? Like, oh yeah, all the time. So I was like, is it a food? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, or like, very Mad Maxian vibes. Maybe it's like this like ritual that's held where they fight, like or like what do they call with like the cars that destroy each other? Maybe something
Destruction
like that.
Derby.
Yeah, because. And not to get too off base here, but like the motorcycle things from, I mean, I don't know what else to call them, but I want to see more of that, like kind of steampunk's not the right word, but like steampunk tech of this place. Yeah. So maybe Death Wish has something to do with like a race or something.
Yeah, right.
So hopefully we get to see that. I'm excited. It could also be a drug, I guess, since the ladies after lunch thing. It was interesting. I saw
I just still love the enjoying time in hell. Oh, because of the Hellcatch Valley. Oh, right.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. I feel like the line works both ways though. Even though Matt kind of like corrected it, I feel like he still kind of implied the former as well.
What were you saying though a second ago? I think I interrupted you.
What was I saying? I don't remember. That lady.
Excuse me.
I just want to mention it because I saw some people in the chat when like she's like, my name starts with a D. That I saw some people being like, it's Delilah, and I was like, it's not Delilah.
Come on, people. Are you high?
Yeah, they've had a little too much after lunch.
Yeah, you are high on something. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I don't think that was any type of watch this be proven wrong. But I don't think that was any like seed planted for a big reveal. I think it was just showing that this lady is kind of out of it.
Yeah. It's Lord Esteros in disguise. It's like, wait, what?
It's Vecna.
Yeah. Oh man.
So a couple other things on. I don't really have much to say here, but I pointed it out in the recap. Want to point it out again here. Ashton's hyper rage got me super interested in that. I mean, clearly it's just more of the custom class he and Matt have designed here, but he said he's spending a point on hyper rage, so it's not random. Taliesin must just have some sort of like point economy that I wonder if, since he spent one on hyper rage, I wonder what else he can spend them on, or maybe they're all just for hyper rage. I don't know. But just super curious for what that mechanically might mean. And not that this is directly tied to the hyper rage, but I also thought it was just very interesting that he was frightened even though he was raging, because it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're supposed to be like immune to that when you're raging.
I think he got advantage on it. I think whenever he did the roll.
What it is. Maybe that's what it is. You get advantage.
Let me check. Yeah, because I do remember him asking about it, and he was like, "Oh, that's right, you are berserking or raging." Excuse me. I'm just looking while you're.
Yeah, but in any case, I just thought, and maybe it was all just to give the moment some flavor, but I thought it was just both Matt and Taliesin like played into that pretty hard about like him being scared and
Right.
thinking that like the bill was coming due for like these things that Ashton's capable of now. Like, so kind of makes you think that even though that was just an illusion in a way, like, is there some toll to be paid for Ashton's abilities that we haven't really seen yet? Like, is there the other side of this coin, the fact that he can do portals and stuff? Maybe it's taking a toll on him in some way we haven't seen yet.
Does okay, so I did see it's Path of the Berserker. It's one of the subclasses, so that you get immunity to fear.
Okay, so it's just not across the board.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, right. And then I also was thinking about, level 5, you get an extra attack. Has he been taking an extra attack?
That's a good question. I haven't been.
Well, there is an ask because it seems like he's got some really cool like flavor stuff over the last couple of levels, but most specifically the last level. So he got the portals, which we saw last episode, which I was like, oh, this is his big new level thing. But then he mentioned the hyper raging, and so I'm thinking like this class is really like detailed, and like I'm just excited to see like the on paper full like final version of it.
Yeah, me too.
Not only for his class, also for F.C.G's cleric class as well.
Yeah, me too. And speaking of F.C.G, if you're cool to move away from Ashton, I forgot I wanted to mention this earlier when we were talking about him. During that battle with Dusk and the thugs and everything, at one point Liam, I don't remember what, I think it was just an attack, but Liam rolls a natural 20, and Sam is kind of doing his own thing, but he perks up and he goes, was that a natural 20? And he looks at Matt, and Matt goes, yeah, it was, and like points at him, and Sam's like, ooh, and then starts writing something down.
Yeah.
So similarly to how like we've noticed that Sam has noted natural, like his own natural ones, he's now noting other people's natural 20s. So like, what is going on there? Like, what is he doing?
But it's got to be, it must be specifically for combat or something too. Because there's been other natural 20s rolled that he hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
true, but it could be that he just like noticed and marked it.
Yeah.
And,
true.
Right. But at least in this case, there's 100% something, because both Matt and him like were like, yeah, that was one. Like it wasn't just he rolled a natural 20.
Yeah.
So I just want to know what's going on there.
The slow burn, man. 24 episodes in, I'm like, give me your character sheet.
Yeah, for real. So I just thought it was interesting because we noticed the natural 1 thing. So it's cool that it's not that these two things are even related, but it's cool that it's both ends of the spectrum and not just the fails. But yeah, it just got my mind racing because like clearly he's like this therapy robot. He's kind of an empath. So it kind of makes sense that like he would attune to the highs and lows. And so I wonder if that just like, if you collect this many 20s, maybe something happens, or if you collect this many 1s, maybe something happens.
Exodia.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. So if anybody has any ideas, let us know.
What do you think's going on with Dusk?
I don't know. So anytime the Feywild's mentioned, especially when somebody's memories are fuzzy, it just makes me think of like the mechanics of going to and from, and how that you can like lose your memories of it. So that's my first guess, but clearly Dusk remembers some things because the Glen and the beautiful everything. So like it's not as if when they exited the Feywild and they did lose their memories, then they wouldn't even have that. So I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how it plays in. I wonder if it's at all connected to Fern. Not like, if not directly, at least like tangentially, since they're both from the Fae. But yeah,
surely we're going to the Fae at some point, right? I mean, it seems like there's so many references to it. I mean, even when they were heading to the Heartmoor, Matt made a comment of it seeming like the Fae was kind of bleeding through. Part of that, I think, is also like the solstice or whatever of the planes kind of converging. But I can't help but feel like we at some point we're going to the Feywild, I assume.
Yeah, if not going directly, I think its influence will have a direct impact. Because I mean, even dating back to EXU, the first one, at the time we weren't really sure where all these threads were going, but a lot of them have been picked up in various ways. So we know in EXU there was that gate that was being used, and stuff was weird around it, and the elves that were in charge of looking out after that area like had no idea what was going on. So
Right.
Feywild's definitely doing something. So I think we'll see something with it, if not a direct trip there.
Yeah, something's cooking in that pot.
Yeah,
for sure.
The High Mistress of the Burning Veil or whatever.
Yeah. The War Queen.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I hope we go there. I mean, I want to meet Fern's grandma.
Yeah, Morgan.
Yeah, maybe. I guess that is her name. But if it is like the Morrigan,
right,
I'm interested to see.
Yeah. It was funny though, because she like instantly dropped like the lore drop on who she was, and people were kind of like, "Oh wow, like this is a lot. You're going through a lot here."
Yeah, I think Sam was like, or F.C.G. was like, we should all be more open with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was great. But so I guess we'll find out more about her. Do you think we're gonna have another long-term guest like we did with Robbie Daymond?
I mean, who knows? I guess anything goes this campaign. But to me, Robbie felt different, and so like in the past, guests like Robbie lasted way longer than any guest ever had. So
yeah, okay.
I mean, who's to say? I mean, my initial instinct would be no. I imagine she's probably just going to be here for a short stint, but maybe that's what they're doing this time around, and they're going to have 20 episode stints with people.
Yeah,
it'd be cool. I mean,
are most guests, are they 2 or 3 episodes or even longer than that?
I would say that usually there's like arc is not the right word that implies too grand a scheme, but usually there's like a current like story thread that a guest like pops in for and they're relevant to, and then like when that ends, like they both kind of go their own way. So like an initial guess would be maybe she's there for all of the Bosseros episodes, and then maybe whenever the party leaves to do what they're going to do, maybe Dusk goes a different way. But I mean, who's to say? Maybe it's going to be exactly like Robbie and Eric is here for a while, which honestly, the longer the better. You get more fleshed out and more opportunities for cool moments.
So let me ask you this. You made a comment a second ago on like who knows, like, in this campaign, anything goes, I guess. Like, let's go back to before episode 1, where Matt basically gave the disclaimer, hey, like, we're doing some really new stuff with this campaign, like throw out your preconceived notions. Now heading up to episode 25 in the next month, do you feel like any of that has come to fruition yet, or do you feel like there could still be like some pretty massive, because I haven't watched a campaign before outside of like the 10 episodes in campaign 1 and like 7 or 8 in campaign 2. How has this campaign differed from those in terms of like matching that congruently with Matt's comment?
Yeah, I mean, the only two things that have felt like pretty different is one, Robbie's tenure, because like I'm not going to repeat everything we just said, but that's one of them. And then the second one would be the way Travis's characters were introduced, the fact that he like played Bertrand and then his real character was introduced,
right?
So I mean, I do think those were definitely a change from what we were used to, and I enjoyed both of those. But I don't think that Matt's comments would have purely just stemmed from those two things. So I imagine there's still probably some unexpected elements to this campaign that we've yet to see.
Yeah,
I don't know what those will be. I think one thing we guessed was that maybe a different DM would step in for if not an entire string of episodes, maybe at least for just like a segment of one episode or something. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I still expect there to be some of those crazy changes he talked about.
Some twists and turns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I know you hadn't seen the previous 2 campaigns like you just mentioned, but what has been your has this felt vastly different from what you were familiar with?
It I'd say campaign 2 for me, just the characters were a lot slower for me to get into. I really liked Travis's character. I can't think of his name.
Ford.
Ford. And I like Jester a lot. I think a lot of people did, obviously. But yeah, I had a tough time like getting locked in, and then on the total opposite with campaign 1, I felt like I had gotten in too late, in the sense of like there were so many like comments and conversations between the characters that it was hard for me to like fully like wrap my head around the story of like who everyone was and where they were.
Mm-hmm.
So the main difference for me has been like since episode 1, just feeling like in love with these characters and being like they're so clever and fun and creative, and like anytime any person talks, like the spotlight's on them, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like there's not anybody where I'm like, oh my gosh, this person again.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it, and it's felt cohesive and it's felt fun, and then also like my stage of life, like I'm actually playing in a D&D campaign on a every other week basis, and so and my wife's involved in that and also watching EXU. And so I think also part of the reason it feels different is just because like our stage of life, like it's a lot more of like our mainstream hobby now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before campaign 1, it'd be like, I'm at the gym like for one time in my life and I'm listening to an episode on my on my earphones. So, and now it's like more habitual. It's like, oh, it's Thursday night. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's watch some Critical Role.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
That.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it does. Glad we got you now.
Yeah, get your hooks in. So, but yeah. So
To circle all the way back around, I definitely am still looking out for these massive changes that they teased. But I think we've gotten a bit of taste of that with those things we talked about.
Yeah.
Go ahead if you got something.
Well, I was just asking, just like, what else from the episode do you wanted to talk about?
I got a couple things still. They're basically just little moments. So Orem, when he took that moment to stabilize, mentioned, I druidcraft just like I've seen Nell and Maeve do many times. So I was like, who is that? And so I looked that up, and so Nell is. So, Orem was with Will, who is the son of a character Liam played in a one-shot one time called Derrig. So Nell is Derrig's wife, and Maeve was one of Will's sisters. So
Nell is Will's mom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And aunt.
And aunt?
What? The other one. Maeve is his aunt.
Did you say it was no, his sister? His sister. Will's sister.
Oh, okay.
So sister and mom.
Mom and sister. It's both his mom and aunt.
I thought that's what you were getting at. I was like, wait, did I miss something?
They live in the South.
Okay. So I just thought, cool little, of course, Liam O'Brien is, the master of the little flavor moments when he's just otherwise doing a very, mechanical action. So I just thought that was really cool and kind of gives us a little bit more depth to, he wasn't just dating Will. Like, he was pretty familiar with his whole family. Like he said, I saw Maeve and Nell do this a million times.
I think he's done a good job, like characterizing basically like the love of his life. I mean, he described it as like, we had really great years together. Like, that's something you say about, the love of your life, it's not like a fling or a tryst, so yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So, he had a pretty good, or not, I don't know if it's good's the right word to use, but pretty intimate relationship with the whole family, it sounds like. And I don't know, I guess Nell and Maeve were both healers in some form or fashion, and don't have much to say here, just wanted to point it out because, bravo to Liam. But I'm interested to see if maybe we meet some of Will's family at some point in the campaign. I think that would be really interesting, especially if Derrig was one of them. I mean, not that there's anything big to expect there or anything. I just think it would be cool to see him again. But yeah, so wanted to mention that. And then let me just check my notes. There were a couple other things. The Taste of Taldore coming back up, I just thought was really funny.
Didn't this get mentioned somewhere
yeah,
before?
Abria is the first one that talked about it.
In Kaimal?
I think it was Kaimal because I think it was like the casino buffet.
Yeah, right.
So I just thought it was great that kind of Matt picked that up, and the Taste of Taldore is now like a thing that is.
I'm assuming it's like the Golden Corral of Taldore.
That's what I'm imagining. Yeah. So I mean, it could easily just be kind of like a quick glossed over moment when we pick back up, but I kind of hope we get to that Matt kind of has fun with that, and we get to kind of, hear him describe it in more detail when we pick back up in a few weeks. But just thought that was fun. Then All Minds Burn. There's really not much to talk about here because we don't have any information, but I just thought it was really interesting that Ashton asked Dusk about, like, I don't even remember exactly what he said. Like, do you know the All Minds Burn? Like, are you on All Minds Burn or something? So I was just going to get your take on that if you had any.
Well, I actually forgot about that. Because I remember he wanted to know if she was like, I think he like asked her if she was high or like looked her over or something. And then, he asked something to that regard. And I caught it, but then I thought, okay, it's interesting. Ashton so far is the king of like letting things out. And then no one's like, I guess to be fair, they did ask him later when they're going to bed about, the Greymore house or whatever. And he was like, oh, don't worry about it. But Taliesin is the king of like these stingers that, are like the ultimate slow burn. So I don't know, but I just think it's interesting that we're getting so many like, offhand comments from him. That's just like, well, what was that?
So curious. We got Death Wish. We got All Minds Burn. What are these things? Hopefully we find out. And then I think, I got two other little things. One's quick. One's a bit more. So I'm going to get the quick one out of the way. Where last episode ended was the big Laudna Imogen moment. And we were kind of wondering what the aftermath of that would be. In this episode, they didn't really have a chance to talk or anything. But
except for F.C.G. bringing it back up again.
Right. And
telling Imogen like, yeah, we can get Laudna involved. And she's like, oh, that's maybe later.
But, and I mean, obviously the mechanics of D&D and the fact that, ultimately they're going to be playing together. They did still, like, Laudna got on Imogen's back, piggyback style, when they were flying. And so, like, it's not as if it's like a complete shunned, cold thing.
Right.
But at the same time, there's clearly something there, and they haven't had a chance to talk. I think at the end of the episode, when Matt like reminded them that it's about to be a 5-week break, I think Laura said something about like, oh, dang it. Like, I wish I would have had some conversations then. So my best guess is that she wishes she had taken a moment to like done some RP there. But I guess we'll have to wait. But yeah, just wanted to touch on that we didn't actually get any closure is not the right word, but no developments there.
Right.
But then the final thing I wanted to talk about was the whole beginning of the episode with the Dustra. I don't think that was just nothing. Matt made a big deal about like Xandus characterizing it as these never attack humans. Like this is not normal. And then we come to find out that its children had been kidnapped.
Right.
What does somebody want with sandworms? Are they? And my thoughts, as they often do, go back to the terrorist attack. And I'm wondering, like, are these here to like burrow? I mean, we're not really near Dressar, but like, is there something with these baby Dustra and this broomstone that's going to like come together for some sort of massive attack or something?
I think I took it a lot more casual, I guess, in the sense of so we know in EXU when they first find the crown, they're down in the hold of the ship, and they find the like arachnid. I can't think what it was called, but basically like the baby exotic insect.
Oh yeah.
And so we knew that the nameless ones that not only was there a trading of like exotic goods, but also exotic animals. And so
True.
to me, the connection there is just that, we're in like a very Mad Maxian area, and I'm sure there is a trade for that kind of thing. And so I definitely didn't take it as like a large nefarious thing, but just like, some really scummy people stole its babies and try to make a quick buck. And I don't know, maybe it is a lot more. I'm not sure.
No, I mean, you certainly could be right. Just black market situation. I could see that too. But just, I'm curious to see if it does come back up at all, or if it's just a cool little world building moment. But it just stood out to me, since it was it made a big to do of that. This is not their normal behavior.
And I even and I even took it as like that comment as like something has happened which has caused them to act this way, which then led into the realization that its children had been taken, as opposed to just like a random act.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, presumably we might come across the individuals or group that was, responsible. We still haven't seen the Ivory Syndicate pop back up again, which, were in an exotic trade of some kind at one point. And so maybe they could be involved.
True. Very true. We may never see from them, but, since they were made as such a big scary monster at that very early campaign.
And they never mentioned again. It was weird.
I feel like we might see them. So that would be cool. Ivory kind of implies like elephant poachers in our world. So maybe that, stealing baby Dustra maybe would be right up their alley. It'll be interesting to see.
But hats off to Matt, though, for the, descriptions of the Dustra.
Ugh. Long fingers. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Actually, I just thought of this off the top of my head. F.C.G was the one that ultimately communicated with that creature in that moment, which is just interesting to me that Sam chose the spell Speak with Animals, but yet characterizes F.C.G as this entity that thinks like they have no soul and kind of just writes them off. So it's very interesting that he would have that spell.
That's a great point. I didn't think about that. Because I guess a few episodes earlier talking about horses and makes that comment of they don't have souls and stuff. That is interesting. It's an interesting pickup. I mean, maybe it's the empath side of him, like wanting to. I don't know, actually.
Which, now I'm not trying to get on the conspiracy theory train here, but what if he feels that way because of that bird is a drone and isn't alive, actually? I don't know, but just thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, we got quite a few weeks till we find out. A little bit about a little over a month. So is Calamity going to be every Thursday, or are they going to do a double up like on a Friday like they did with Chiral?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be the next 4 Thursdays. Yeah,
okay.
Which I'm excited for.
I'm excited too. I mean, I feel like I think a lot of people feel this way. Like EXU Part 1, as a 9 episode series, definitely probably could have gotten brought down to 5 or 6. I'm excited to get a little bit presumably a chunkier story in a 4 episode tangent.
Yeah, and we just have a much more condensed sandbox. Like we don't know what we're getting, but we know it's the Calamity, Like EXU, we had no idea what at all we were stepping into. This seems to be like a story that certainly has an end. So it'll be interesting to see. And I'm just really excited to see Brennan Lee Mulligan finally get to play in the Critical Role sandbox, because he's one of the best DMs out there. So
I'm excited too.
Also excited for all the players that are in it. So looking forward to it for sure. It's a nice helps the 5-week absence, go down a little bit smoother that we've got.
For sure.
To look forward to.
I had this nightmare of the 5 weeks is up and they're like, we're just not going to come back.
We're done.
Yeah. Well, what should we do for our thumbnail today?
I was thinking, I feel like we have to do something with Imogen being bald, but it's not like we're going to shave our heads, so I don't really know.
I left my bald cap in the other room. So,
Yeah, so I don't. Do you have any ideas, or I could make myself look bald? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, let me see. I don't think I can. I kind of. Okay, yeah, we can do this.
Okay. I feel like that's good enough.
Yeah, good enough. Ship it. Well, guys, that's our discussion today. Check out the our Twitter. It's at the Pixelists for other information coming from us. Also, we're going to be talking about Calamity. We are going to finish up Kaimal at some point. We are going to do Doctor Strange right at some point.
Yeah.
Is it too late for Moon Knight, by the way?
I mean, we could do it.
I got one episode left.
Oh, bro, episode 5 was like my favorite.
Yeah, episode 5 was insane. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then of course we have The Witcher season 2, which will
coming up next for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, catch you guys later. We'll see you.
Bye, y'all.